On this episode of China Uncensored, China is smarter than the US. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. The 15-year-olds of this country have really let us down. You know, we're always told, children are our future. Yeah? Well, thanks for the crappy future, kids. There's a reason why fish eat their young. The test results are back for the PISA. That's a global test of 15-year-olds' math, science, and reading skills. And China dominated the US. Thanks for letting us down. Hey, American high schoolers, here's a reading test for you. Read between the lines. Looks like I have to come to the rescue yet again, America. Okay, here's the plan. If you're watching outside the United States, please cover your ears for a moment. Instead of testing all of our 15-year-olds, let's just test some of them. Maybe, I don't know, the smartest and richest of them. How about we just send in Seattle's test scores and say they represent the whole country? Ha! Then we'll see how well Shanghai, China does. Wait, Shanghai, China? Oh, God. China already stole my idea. All along we've been lamenting that Chinese students are crushing us in standardized tests, when in reality they've just been using test scores from Shanghai and claiming that represents all of China. But here are some facts about Shanghai. That's only 2% of the country, but most of China's richest elite live there, and there are restrictions in place that keep migrant students from entering schools. Not only that, but teachers are paid more, schools get better funding, per capita GDP is more than double the national average, and 84% of high school graduates go to college compared to the national average of 24%. Not to mention that the entire education system in China is geared to taking these kind of tests. Students' time is entirely devoted to studying for tests that determine the next phase of your life. What kind of high school you go to depends on how well you do on your final middle school test. What kind of college you go to depends on your Gaokao. That's the hellish exam you have to take at the end of high school. And just like the way China trains athletes, this single-minded devotion to one task doesn't really leave students equipped for life outside of school. According to the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, the average college graduate only makes the equivalent of $45 more than your average migrant worker. Monthly salaries for college grads have plateaued at about $250 since 2003, according to the Beijing Times. 3 million graduates were left unemployed this year, according to the government, and Beijing, the capital, only has a 33% employment rate for grads. Compare that to the US, that only has a 3.9% unemployment rate for grads. In China, you're required to go to 9 years of school, though in the countryside that rarely happens. Now, supposedly, this is free education, except, surprise, it's actually way more shadowy and complicated than that. Everyone wants a government job because those are considered iron rice bowls. Even if you don't make much money, the connections you make and the strings you can pull mean you can make a lot of money off the books. But there are 1.3 billion people in China and there aren't that many government jobs. So how do you get a government job? Well, you gotta go to the best schools. But there's not enough room in the best schools, so how do you get into the best schools? Bribe your way in. Missed a few crucial points on your Gaokao? At one elite Beijing high school, you can get an extra point for every $4,800 your parents donate to the school. Some Chinese media reported that to get into a high school with close ties to the coveted Renmin University in Beijing, all you need to do is grease the wheels with $80,000 to $130,000. Starts younger than that. The Clean China Kindergarten puts you on the fast track to Tsinghua University, where some of China's richest and most powerful have attended. It's supposed to be only for children of Tsinghua faculty, but according to what an anonymous staff member told the New York Times, if you have a spare $24,000, a Tsinghua professor will sponsor your child. Teachers make squat in China, so everything has a price. Admission, placement in top classes, position as class monitors, even the seats closest to the blackboard. And let's just say Teacher Appreciation Day gets a little wild. So it's not really too much of a surprise that families that actually have that kind of money prefer to just send their kids to study abroad. Since China opened up in 1979, more than 2.5 million students have studied abroad, often the sons and daughters of top officials. My friend went to Harvard with Bo Guagua, the son of Bo Xilai. Kind of makes you wonder that if China really does have such higher scores on tests like the PISA, why so many Chinese families send their kids to study abroad. That's not to say that the education system in America isn't broken either. There's actually a lot we can learn from how they teach children in the East. For example, James Stigler, a professor of psychology at UCLA who studies teaching and learning around the world, did a test on Japanese and American first grade students. He basically gave these kids an impossible math problem, way beyond what they would be able to solve. The American kids gave up after about 30 seconds. The Japanese students tried for an hour. And I think this is part of the problem with our cultural values in the US, the idea that either you are intelligent or you aren't. And the US education system has a variety of standardized tests, and in some areas splits kids into honor classes by the second grade, all of which drills into these kids' mind that whether they're smart is something fundamental and unchanging about them. If you struggle with something, then it's just part of who you are and you can't change it. It's a weakness. That's not what they're taught in the East. In Asian cultures, suffering is a good thing. And because it's a good thing, if you struggle with, say, a subject in school, it's not because you lack intelligence, it's an opportunity to face the challenge and overcome it. Struggling is a sign of strength. And that's why I think those Japanese students tried for an hour to do what the American students gave up trying after only 30 seconds. So the American education system is struggling. Shall we say that's a weakness or a strength? And as for those no-good Shanghai students beating the world, I hear school was just canceled because of off-the-scale pollution. Haha, the gap is closing. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Be sure to check out the Facebook and Twitter page for more. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.